In today's episode, we take you to Tales of the Cocktail in New Orleans, Louisiana. Tales is the world's leading cocktail conference that brings bartenders, distillers, and cocktail enthusiasts together for a week of education and fun. We had the opportunity to speak with Jason Moore, Managing Director of Westland Whiskey Distillery in Seattle, Washington. Welcome to Brewed and Boozed.
Hey y'all, it's Kristen.
And it's Paula.
Welcome to Brewed and Boozed. We are here with Jason Moore, the Managing Director of Westland Whiskey. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and chat with you.
Yeah, I'm sure your Tales schedule is very packed, so we very much appreciate you coming and chatting with us.
Absolutely. It's a fun time though. This is a great conference. It's a great opportunity to be in front of so many people that really matter to talk about your product. So it's all worth the busy schedule and the late night.
So tell us a little bit how you got into the world of spirits.
Oh goodness, I got into the industry when I was in college, bartending. So started behind the bar and ended up managing bars by the time I was done with school, and then got into the distributor sales side, and then grew to work for a few suppliers and really found my passion in whiskey, and more particularly single malt Scotch whiskey. So worked for a number of single malt Scotch producers and really fell in love until this new thing, American single malt, started happening here in the U.S.
Tell us a little bit about the single malt introduction to the U.S. and
Sure.
how that's all come about.
Yeah, so if you think about whiskey globally, when people say the word whiskey, most of the time they're thinking single malt whiskey. In the U.S., it's a bit different because we're so geared towards bourbon and rye. But there are a mighty few distilleries who set forth to create single malt whiskey here in America. And there's reasons to do that. We grow amazing barley here. We have an amazing culture of malting for beer, the craft brewing revolution that happened here in the U.S. And so our two co-founders started Westland in 2010, focused on making whiskey in the style of the old world, but with a sense of place and with really the gear towards showcasing that America can make single malt on par with those who are known for it globally, Scotland, Japan, etc. So Washington was a perfect place to do that. Only made sense to make single malt whiskey there because corn is not a high growing crop there. Really, it's grains like malt and rye and wheat. And so what other whiskey to make in the Pacific Northwest?
Why do you think there is such a push for a single malt whiskey? Why do you think that's such a big thing nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, the world sees whiskey as single malt. This is what people think of, and here in the U.S., we've just really done bourbon and rye for so long, and there's been blended whiskeys and other parts of the American whiskey category, but we're also one of the very consuming countries in the world. If you think about the size of the single malt brands from Japan, from Scotland that are here, there's a market for it and there's a thirst for it, and we can do things here that are unique, that are different from how things are made in Europe or in Japan, and we can make things with our own spin. And what's really great about the U.S. is regionally across the U.S. there's so many different nuances to how distilleries are making single malt. We were part of the starting of the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, which was really geared towards creating the standard of identity for American single malt in the U.S. And we were 12 founding members, and now there's over 100 different distillery members that are producing American single malt. There's over 200 distilleries in the U.S. that are producing single malt as well. So it's an exciting time. There's a lot of belief in it.
I'll use local bog.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. So Westland, we have our flagship whiskey, and then we have what's called our Outpost range, which is really an exploration of pushing the limits to what's known in whiskey from the old world, but with our sense of place in mind. So we explore oak that is indigenous to the Pacific Northwest. We explore barley varieties that can really only grow in the Pacific Northwest, and we explore peat. And that exploration has taken us on a journey that's created amazing whiskeys, but also creates challenges. So we released our Solum, Westland Solum, which is part of the Outpost range, the very first one in 2022. And this whiskey was the very first globally released whiskey that was an American single malt or an American whiskey made using American peat. So it was a journey to find a bog. So there are many bogs in the US, but there's not a use for harvesting peat. And so we wanted to try to do this and try to do it in a very sustainable way, which is important to us. So we found a peat bog in Shelton, Washington, which is about an hour and a half south of us. The challenge then became, how do you then peat the barley? Because we don't have the malting facilities that they have in Scotland.
They're huge.
Well, they're huge. There's these big kiln floor malting facilities that this is what they do. And so we're really fortunate to have some progressive thinkers and some really special smart people in our community of malt houses in the Pacific Northwest. So we partnered with Skagit Valley Malting, which their malt house is less than a mile from our farm, our 80-acre farm up in the northern part of the state. And they said, okay, we love this challenge. Let's figure out a way to do it. And so it's been an iteration of trying to figure out through a drum malting process how to infuse this smoke into the malting process. We're getting better at it each year, but the whiskey is unique. And what you find is that the profile of our whiskey is quite different from Scotch, as you know, from the starting point. But then even when you get to peat, the profile of the peat is quite different because it's all about this. What vegetation that was in that area, you know, years and years and years ago. We have much more of an earthy, vegetal, floral smell of Washington. So our goal is to take this amazing terroir that we have in the state and bring it to life through our whiskeys. And we do that in these different ways. And it's a ever continuing experiment that we're on.
Now that particular whiskey won an award.
Yeah, so we've been fortunate in the past year to really have some awards that have changed the scope for us quite a bit. So the whiskey that you're speaking of, our Solum, Westland Solum Edition 1, won Best American Whiskey from Inside Hook Spill Award. It won Best American Single Malt from Whiskey Magazine. And then we were fortunate also, its sister whiskey, Garyana, which is where we explore indigenous oak, won #3 whiskey in the world from Whiskey Advocate this past year, and their top 20 exciting whiskeys of the year. It was the first time a Washington distiller was ever on the list, and we were the only one in the top 10 not from Scotland or Kentucky. So we got a lot of fanfare back home, people quite proud of Washington becoming known for making whiskey as they are now for wine and beer. So yeah, it's been. We're really fortunate. We have a passionate team. We have amazing people that care deeply about making whiskey of quality with a sense of place, and that passion is recognized in the liquid that you taste. We're quite fortunate.
That's very cool. That's awesome that like you're in the accolades of you know the Isla Scotches and things like that. I think that's really cool that it's homegrown and you know you're using your local products and local people.
What's awesome. Next for Westland?
Well, I have some whiskeys in front of us just to tease. These aren't out yet, so you're the first to see these bottles. So
exclusive.
You know, I mentioned Washington's known for brewing and winemaking culture as well. So right now our whiskey flagship, which is kind of our 10 years of making whiskey put into our house style. And then we have our Outpost range, which explores the physical terroir. So that's the peat, the oak, the barley. And this next journey is about really owning into our sense of community in Washington and the cultural terroir. So we started a project, I guess this would have been roughly 10 years ago, where you know, we're surrounded by amazing brewers that are making really compelling beers. Our whiskey is made with the brewer's mindset, so we take a lot of attention into the mashing part of whiskey making. We're not just waiting for it to get in cask and get the flavor from there. So we do a 5-malt mash bill where we're using roasted malt similar to brewers use, which doesn't yield a lot of alcohol but creates a lot of flavor. We use a Belgian Saison brewer's yeast, which is also not very efficient for making whiskey, doesn't yield as high but creates a lot of flavor in the brewing process. So the connection to beer has always been there. And then our casks that we use are long-term air-dried new oak casks, very similar to wine casks. And through the years, we've created these partnerships. So going back 10 years ago, we started a project where brewers around the area, if they need a cask to mature beer or to do a fermentation project, we would give them the cask. Do whatever you want with it. The only thing we ask is that you give it back to us in one piece when you're done. And so over the years, we've amassed quite a large section of our rack house is full of casks from these amazing breweries that have done amazing things. And we're now in a position where we can create our first global release, which will come out in September, of our cask exploration series, which we have beer cask finish batch 1 and wine cask finish batch 1. So beer cask finish is all whiskeys that are finished in Washington brewers casks, and the wine cask finish is whiskeys that are finished in Washington wine casks as well. Beer cask is roughly 10,000 bottles. The wine cask is roughly 14,000 bottles, but they'll continue for the next 5 years at least. Batch 2, batch 3, batch 4. We're keeping the batches because we have all of these cool casks, and they all have different flavors that they yield onto the whiskey, and we want to be able to change in what we want, what we like. So our master blender, Shane Armstrong, is super talented and super passionate and super excited about seeing the different journeys that these whiskeys can go on. So while you'll always see it on the shelf for the next, short to medium term, you'll also see new iterations of it.
So you could collect them all.
Correct.
It's sort of like a quest.
Exactly. Was there anything else you'd like to share? Is there any other information you can give us?
Yeah, thanks for having us. I mean, I think any chance that we can get to tell our story. I mean, we're a young distillery, right? And we've had some success, but we're a small team of people that care so deeply about what they do. And I get kind of choked up talking about this team that I work with because they're just amazing people that are on this mission to change the way that people think about whiskey, and especially American whiskey. And we try to do it with the most thoughtful approach we can. So the moniker of the distillery for so long has been thoughtfully made, and that's our approach on whiskey, but also lends to the way that we think about our role in community, but also the agriculture system that we're a part of. So us making whiskey helps farmers create other things. One of our farmers often says, we used to grow grains for fun and occasional profit. At the end of the day, they're growing it because they have to regenerate their soil. So the work that we're doing to create compelling things from that barley and make it profitable to the system that we're a part of is really something that I think is unique. I mean, we know the farmers that are growing our barley. They're partners of ours, and every bottle that's sold of Westland means something to a lot of people. And then also the one thing I would brag about, if you'll allow me, is this past February we officially got our B Corp certification, so became a B Corp certified distillery, and we were the highest scoring B Corp certified distillery in the U.S. So our mission around sustainability is quite important to us as well. In fact, the beer and wine casks were the first ones where we were actually able to put it on the label, the new products. So it really just lends to the fact that we're a whiskey that has a purpose just outside of making cool whiskey and making some profit here and there. It's really about the role that we play in our community and to the planet. And so we're quite proud of that.
That's awesome.
And your distillery, if I'm in the Seattle area,
yeah, we're actually
come go check it out.
I would call us an urban distillery. We're close to downtown, just about 2 miles south of downtown Seattle, in a neighborhood called Sodo, very close to where the Seattle Mariners play and the Seattle Seahawks play. And we're open Wednesday through Sunday, 1 to 7, and we do tours every day. So it's a great facility to come and see, and there's always unique special whiskeys that you can't find anywhere else that you can get at the distillery, which is great. And then sometimes we'll do broader tours where we go up to our farm that's about an hour and a half north of Seattle, where we have 80 acres of farmable land where we're growing barley, and this is where all of our whiskey sleeps and ages. So yeah, if you're in Seattle, come see us for sure.
Thank you so much for taking your time with us today, and enjoy the rest of the fest.
The tales.
And enjoy. And what do we have coming up today? Do we have any other events that you're hosting?
Yeah, we are doing a party, because this is Tales of the Cocktail, and we're doing a party in the theme of Wet Hot American Summer, the film. So it's West Hot American Summer, which is a summer camp movie. But you know, in the Pacific Northwest, we do a lot of things around this summer camp mentality. We have our brand academy called Camp Westland. So yeah, we're going to throw a fun event. We have some super star bartenders from across the West Coast that are going to be representing Westland today at Bartonique. So we're looking forward to it.